Hey, it's Martha here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. To those of you who have subscribed, welcome back. And those of you who haven't, and you just stumbled on this video, welcome as well. And please do subscribe so that you don't miss a video. In today's video, as you can see on the topic, I'll be discussing surviving parenthood in the modern day, or at least my way of surviving. So we are discussing parenthood. Parenthood is one of the most challenging things, especially in today's life that we are living in. It's getting more and more challenging, and there isn't the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it, because everyone is just, as we say, winging it. Everybody's just doing what they think is right as we go along. However, I believe there are some things that, if done a certain way, you will produce good results. It does not guarantee you're going to produce good results, but there is high chance of good results. As I say in most things, I do it God's way, and for me it's a tried and tested, and I know the things that I've done have worked for me. However, throughout this video, once again, please, I'm not claiming to know how to do this parenting business. Like I said, there isn't anyone who can be an expert when it comes to parenting. We learn parenting every single day as we go along. With my job, I have seen parents or moms or dads at the most vulnerable situation, because you go to parents who have just had this brand new baby, or you've helped them to have this brand new baby, and then the next thing you go to see them, they're crying because they don't know what to do. They don't know if they're doing the right thing. To be honest, like I said, I don't think there's anyone who can claim to do it very well or to do it right. We all have seen, I'm sure at some point we have seen people that we looked up to and thought, oh my goodness, their way of parenting, I would do this when I have children. I remember growing up, I would see parents, family that I would look at and I'll think, I would like to parent my children that way. But then we have seen the results of those children. Most of them are not that admirable. So you look at it and you think, where did they go wrong? One thing that I believe is the most important ingredient of raising children the right way comes at the top. That's love. Loving them, that's the number one ingredient. Anything else follows. But the difference comes in how we give this love to them. So like I said, my way, the way I do it God's way. The Bible in Proverbs 13:24 says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Which means disciplining. I know a lot of people avoid that verse because all they associate it with is, when it says spare the rod, it means beat that child. I don't believe that's what it means. It means if you spare disciplining a child, that child is going to be spoiled. Because nowadays there's lots of, we all know there's books that have been written, TED Talks that have been given to the world, thousands and thousands, on parenting. You look at it and you think, why would there be so much talked about on parenting? This is where we need to understand that the devil is out to destroy everyone. But the easiest way to start destroying is one family at a time. And if it's hits the head, which is the parents, and then the children are going to be scattered, spoiled. That's the whole nation, spoiled and scattered. So we need to know as parents, what are the things that we need to be careful about in raising, in parenting our children. For a start, we need to look into ourselves. Reflect in our own childhood. What's that? When we were growing up, there's a certain way that we grew up, the way we were raised. And at that time, 9 out of 10 of us, the chances are we didn't like the way we were being raised. When I go back to it, not everything was wrong, but somehow, whenever you're a child and the parent is giving you direction and disciplining you, especially when disciplining you, most of the times we hated it because it was painful. It was the way we were being disciplined that was painful. And when we look back, that shaped the parents we are today. In most cases, it shaped the parents we are today. Why does this happen? Because there are things that our parents were parented, and they knew that's the only way they knew how, and they did the same parenting us. And unfortunately, those things stay in us, and that's how we parent our children. However, I would say the children of today are somehow lucky because although they are getting the strict parents or the models that we learned from our parents, somehow it's been diluted with knowledge, with wisdom and exposure to life. So we are doing it somehow different. I wouldn't say different completely as in we are doing it better or we are doing it worse. I believe everyone takes a bit of what the best thing they think they learned from their parents' parenting, and they mix with what they know better now, and we raise our children. I'll give an example. When we were growing up, I remember parents were not, they were never our friends. They would literally just tell you as it is, and you don't question, you don't stop to question, because if you stop and question, you're going to wake up in hospital. If you are going to wake up, you're going to be, you would be in trouble. So you did not question anything. What you're told goes. Raising our children today, they have been brought up, they've been told to question everything, to question the reasons why we are doing whatever we are doing. For that reason, I believe there's an advantage and a disadvantage to that. It might sometimes give the children too much freedom of literally just questioning everything and anything. I know we don't want to raise children that just do as they're told and all that. No. But then at the same time, we don't want to raise children who just question everything, even when they can see everything is literally just black and white, and they're still questioning just because they don't agree with it. So, some of the things that I believe help children, and I mean seeing different children, because with my job I tend to I deal with families a lot more, and sometimes you are in someone's home and you're exposed to different parenting, and Some of them you admire, some of them you question and think, I'm trying to wonder who is the parent here and who is the child. So I've got few tips that I have compiled. It does not mean I've done all the tips that I'm talking about. No. And it does not mean I practice everything that I'm saying. But the things I'm saying is because I am, like I said, with my job, I tend to see different families, and for that reason, I see different ways of parenting, and it just gives me, sometimes it challenges my parenting, and it gives me more questions than answers. And recently, it's just made me look into this topic a lot deeper. So, in looking deeper into parenting, I've discovered things that I think are really good and things that I think can be a challenge and things that can make or break our children. So the tips, they are not in any particular order. I've just put them together, so I'll be just going through them one by one. Tip number 1, I will say, set boundaries. As parents, we think when you set boundaries, in most cases, when you set boundaries, you're being too difficult. But when there are no boundaries, children are not going to know when they are doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing. But when there are boundaries, they know they are crossing the boundaries, so they know they are doing something wrong. So by setting boundaries, I believe it will be good when we set boundaries and we tell them, the children, the consequences of crossing those boundaries. I mean, when it comes to children crossing the boundaries, there is not a single child who does not try to cross the boundaries. Every child will try at some point to cross the boundaries. Even when they know what they're doing is wrong, they'll still try. But it's the consequences and sticking to the consequences. Because if we say to them, if you, for example, you tell your children, I want you home by 8 o'clock. This is your 10-year-old or your early teen, they're about 13, 14, and you tell them, by 8 o'clock, you have to be indoors, or else I'm going to have to punish you. And with the punishment, that will mean you could say they take away the privilege of the phones, the gadgets, the games they have, if they've got games, anything. And when you set boundaries and you tell them the consequences of that, sometimes it can be really painful. Like I said, parenting is one of the most toughest roles that we have been given here on earth. Because when sometimes you tell your child, I've told you I want you home, I want you indoors by 8 o'clock, and come 8:15, they know, come 8:15, you see them walking in and all that, and you think, there's a bit of you, because of loving them, you're thinking, I'll overlook. And they think, oh, mom overlooked at that. And tomorrow, they're not going to come back at 8:15. They're going to come back at 8:45. Because you didn't stick to the boundaries and the consequences, the follow-up with the consequences. So, if you say to them, if I say to you, come back at 8 o'clock and you come back later, there will be consequences, and that will be, I'll take away your phone. Even though most of the times it's painful to do that. If you love your children, it's painful. the truth is, you take it away from them, it doesn't mean you're enjoying it. They think you're enjoying it. But the reality is, you are trying to teach them lessons. That's disciplining. So they come back at 8:15 with your heart really saddened, with your heart really hurting. You take away the phone, you keep it, and you give yourself some time. 3-4 days they've gone without it, and then you give it back to them. And when you're giving it back to them, you tell them, I'm going to have to take it again if you cross the boundaries. And like I said, you do not enjoy these things. This is why it's a challenge, because sometimes you punish your child because you're trying to discipline them, not because you're enjoying it, but because you want the best for them. And most of the times you do it with your heart hurting. It really hurts when you're doing it, most of the times, yes. This is where most of us mess up, because we tell them the consequences that will happen, that will take place if they cross the boundaries. And then they cross the boundaries, and then we don't do nothing about it because it hurts. And tomorrow they're going to go further and further out of the boundaries. And the problem with that, and then when they actually do something, they've gone really further away from the boundaries, and then you now want to start punishing them. This is where we go wrong, because children, like I said, there is not a single child who has never tried to cross the boundary. Every child tries to cross the boundaries, because somehow they think, oh, mommy's saying she's going to take away my phone, but is she really going to take my phone? So they're testing the waters, and it is up to you to show them that if they do, that's what you're going to do, and it keeps them within the boundaries. This applies to even the toddlers, the little babies, and all that. A lot of people think I'm going to start disciplining them when they're about 5 or when they're about 6. The truth is, you can start disciplining your child, and if anything, it is really good to start disciplining your child whilst they're young. When they start to understand, when they start to communicate, you've said to them, whenever we finish playing with the toys, this is a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old. Whenever we finish playing with the toys, we put them back in the box so that we can play with them again tomorrow. Yeah? And then they finish playing with the toys. Let's take the boxes, the toys, and put them in the box. And they do that. This is where, and then you see terrible twos, as they call it. You see them, they hear that, they try to cross the boundaries by saying, no, mommy, no. No, mommy, no. Nothing wrong with that. How we respond to what they're doing makes or breaks their listening. Because they're a child, they're going to throw tantrums. And what normally happens with children, I know as a parent, you need to understand that as grown-ups, when somebody upsets us, we have got our ways of showing them that they have upset us. However, with the children, they don't know any better on showing us that they're not happy with what we have done. They're not happy with what we are doing to them. They are people, they have got feelings. We have to put that into consideration. They are people, they have good feelings, which means if he refuses or if she refuses to put back the toys into the box, and I've insisted they do that and they're refusing, and if I tell them off, they throw a tantrum, all they're doing is, that's their skills of dealing with frustration. And we can let them do that, but somehow afterwards, let's try and reason. I have discussed with few family members in convincing them that a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old understands a lot more than we give them credit for. The truth is, we take them as, oh, because they're only 2, because they're only 3, they can't understand. Sit them down on the same level as them and explain what they have done and why you're not happy that they've done that and everything. Believe the same way they show you, like when you are angry with them or when you are sad, they can literally pick up that you're sad and they're coming to you and trying to, try to soften you up and doing all sorts of things. The reality, they know. So if I can encourage anybody, start as early as possible. There is no too soon when it comes to disciplining the child. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying beat them or sit them down and reason with them. You will be surprised how much they take in. They take in a lot more than we give them credit for. So the best time, like I said, to start disciplining these children is when they're young. This is the time that they are understanding, oh, mommy loves me, understanding daddy loves me, I love mommy, I love daddy. And they know when they do this, mommy's not going to be happy. When they do that, mommy's not. You know how children will, when you're in your own home, you sit down, for example, mealtime. You give them vegetables, they're trying to refuse vegetables and all that, and then you talk them through. You don't have to tell them off. Talk them through into eating the vegetables in the nicest way possible. And you will notice children will be children. Then you go visiting the following day or sometime later, you go visiting family or somebody at someone's house, and they will do the things. You've just spoken to them and convinced them in eating the vegetables. And then you go to someone's family, someone's house to visit. And then they're saying, I don't eat vegetables. I don't do this. They do things right in front of, be it strangers or just people that they are not really familiar with, or people that are not mom, dad, brothers and sisters. And then at that time you're thinking, what do I do? Why is this child doing this in front of people? So these are the things that we deal with when we're at home, because you don't want to start telling them off in front of everybody. It doesn't look right. I have seen people who want to try disciplining a child. They're in Tesco's. They're crying for sweets. I want these sweets. I want these sweets. I want this. I want that. And then you want to try disciplining them in the shop, and you want to smack them. You want to do all sorts of things. The disadvantage of that is they don't take that as disciplining because you're doing it in public. They take discipline way better when it's in their own home. So, for example, with that, they're throwing that funny thing when you go to someone's house and everything. So before you go, let's talk to them. So we are going to so and so's house. They're going to make food. And when they make food and when we are eating, I want you to behave yourself. Good children behave on dinner table. I don't want you doing funny things just because I won't be disciplining you that side. When we come home, mommy's not going to be happy and there's going to be consequences, and you give them the consequences. All right. Kids like to visit. So you tell them, if we go to so and so's house and you do this and that, tomorrow we're not going to go again. So we are not going back, and that's it. And they won't come to visit. So although it's sort of threatening, I believe, like I said, even a 2-year-old, even a 3-year-old, even a 4-year-old, you can reason with them. Although we sit down and think, oh no, they're too young, they cannot understand, or they cannot reason, but believe you me, they can reason and they do understand everything. They might not process it as well as we do, but they do process it. They do know what they're doing. So one of the things that we do as parents is, let's put ourselves in their shoes. I know I personally was raised the military way, where I don't know, when I look at it now, I think, yeah, probably they did at some point put themselves in my shoes. I don't know. I will never know. But I believe when we put ourselves in our children's shoes at some point, it helps us understand them a little bit better. Because if we remember very well, when we were growing up, our parents were not our friends. In my case, my parents were not my friends. They were my parents. And there were people who tell you, you do this, you do that, or else. And you did that. That's it. Whereas with today's parenting, of which I think it's good doing it that way, to be your children's friend, which means be that person that whenever the world is in turmoil, everything is upside down there, they know I'll go to mom, I'll go to dad, and I'll get help. It doesn't matter what help it is, be it a listening ear, whether they just want you to listen, or somebody's gonna help boost their self-esteem because they're struggling with something out there, and you as a parent, you motivate them, you encourage them, you praise them to a point where they feel good about themselves. So being that friend that they can tell whenever things are really hard, and be that friend that they can tell when the whole world is beautiful and everything is nice. And it doesn't matter what age, even when they're in primary school, they're in secondary school, they're in university, they're in their own marriages, they should be able to run to mom and dad for help. Because one of the things that can make the world really heavy is when you're struggling, you've got mom and dad, but you're thinking they won't understand. That's not a good feeling of not knowing whether your parents will understand. Be it these heartbreaks out there and all that. Be that parent that is, the children know that mom is going to pick up all my pieces and put them back together, and she's going to rebuild me, and be that parent. I remember having a discussion with a friend of mine who she's raised her children really very well, and she said to me, my children are not my friends. The children are like more or less same age as my children, but she's like, children are not my friends. And I was like, but I personally believe my children are my friends. My children are my friends. Actually, we are actually friends to the point where we can play together, we can joke together, we can do funny things. But like I said, you set boundaries. They know the boundaries. They know mom and dad are our friends, but there's so much that we can do with them. And there's so much that, as friendly as they are, there are things that they don't want us to do, or they're not happy for us to do this type of things. And like I said, parenting is one of the most challenging things. This is where the challenge comes in, when you love somebody, you're friends with them to a point where whenever there's something bothering them, you're there to pick up the pieces, you're there to cuddle them, you're there to do all sorts of things that a nurturing parent can do. And then at the same time, when they have done something, you're there to let them know you're not happy with what they have done. They make you angry and you deal with that to balance loving them and disciplining them. That is one of the biggest challenges, because sometimes you feel like when you love them, if you start disciplining them, they're going to feel like you don't love them anymore or you don't love them enough. I believe you can love your children enough, love them enough to a point where when they have done something wrong, before you even discipline, they know and feel bad. They even start beating themselves that they have disappointed you or they have done this thing that they know you don't like. And balancing that, that's where the challenge is. And in the context of being their friends, as a parent, I'm a parent of two boys and a girl, 3 children. And they are 3 different children. They are really different in one way or another. But one of the mistakes that we do as parents is comparison. This is one of the worst things to do. Guilty as charged. I've done it myself, where you say to this other one, oh, so and so doesn't do that. So and so doesn't do that. Oh, but so and so does this. As good as it may sound, because you think you're trying to challenge them, but it demoralizes them. You can easily make them feel less important, less, or not enough, not good enough, because it's very easy to compare. I remember there was a time my son, when he was my older son, when he was in high school, he had a friend who was, you know, when you go to school awards and all that, there was this girl. He uses her as an example whenever he wants to remind me of that. There was this girl, she would be top of everything. She was one person who they would actually say, since she started that high school, at that time I think she was finishing high school, never missed a day in school, and was top of the class for nearly every subject. So as a parent, you're looking at this and you're thinking, and then your child is getting awards for maybe one academic subject, and then the next thing is PE and all these things. And then you're saying congratulations, but then you're saying, but how about you do like so and so, I can't remember their name, so and so, who is always top of the class and they're winning award of every subject, they're everything, and they don't miss school and all that. And at that time I thought that was to challenge him. But nowadays, every now and then when we're just joking about things, he'll be like, yeah, you remember you were. And the sad thing is that girl messed up her life, and yes, things didn't turn out as good as they looked at that time, unfortunately. And he always says, yeah, I was not top of my class like her and all that, but look what I've become. And then that girl, this is what she's become and all that. And you think, so that was part of learning for me. But the reality is, we sometimes absent-mindedly compare children, compare siblings. Parents, if I can advise you, if there's any parent who's doing that, please stop. It's one of the things that can destroy your children. Praise them for whatever they are. If they're good at one thing, pick up this, recognize their strength and build on that. But don't compare them and don't make them feel less good just because they're not doing as good as the other person. This is, I remember there was time I was talking about marriage as God intended. And one of the things that destroy marriages is comparison. There are people out there comparing, oh, so-and-so's husband is doing this and so-and-so's wife is doing this, and then you're not doing this for me, you do this, but yet so-and-so does. Those things destroy marriages. It destroys children. If you're going to compare children, if you're going to compare siblings, you're destroying them, you're not building them. Let us be sensitive to their emotional reactions. I remember the light bulb moment that I had when somebody said to me, you do know children do have stressful times as well. I was like, oh. Just because they're children, it's very easy to just think they don't have bills, they don't have a mortgage, they don't have a job, which means they don't have stress, because we just associate our stress the way we live, because we've got stress at work, we've got stress in our marriages, we've got stress in our finances, we've got stress in sickness and all that in families. And then because children don't have exactly that, we just assume they don't have their own stressful things, but they do. And it's really important that we pay attention to that. This is why if we don't pay attention to that, we can miss out on a child being bullied in school. They come home. I know in today's days, kids have got games in their rooms, they've got everything in their rooms. Literally, they can spend 24/7 in their rooms, just come down to eat and then they go back and all that. In not paying attention to their emotional reactions and everything around them, we can miss out if a child is going through bullying or something is not going right at school. So it is actually good to pay attention to them, because they do, like us, go through stressful moments, stressful times where they need somebody. And this is where I say, like I said, when it is chaotic out there, they can come home, they can come to mom and dad for support, for emotional healing, for anything and everything that can support them. So let's not miss out on the stressful moments, because they do have stressful moments that when you open up and they tell you, you think, oh my goodness, I was going to miss out on this. So don't miss out on that. Please cultivate in their independence. When we are raising children, one thing that we tend to get carried away with is we are centered on ourselves and just raising this human being. What we are forgetting is tomorrow, they are the nation of tomorrow. They are the people who are going to be running their own marriages, their own homes and everything. So let's raise them so that they are ready for tomorrow. Sometimes I've seen parents who believe they are loving their child by not teaching them life hacks, the things that they need to learn in life. They're going to school, they come home, you cook for them 24/7. You're cooking for them, you're washing for them. There is time to do this for children. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't wash, don't iron, don't cook for your children. There is time to do this for your children, and there's time to train them to do for themselves. I have seen people who believe if they make their children clean the house, or if they make their children cook for the house, they feel like they're abusing them. But believe you me, I'll give you an example. I have taught my children, all of them, to cook from a very young age. They cook, literally. My 14-year-old can cook a meal. She's been cooking for the last 4 or 5 years. She can cook a meal for like 10 people. Proper good meal that you'll be like, what? Yes. I've taught them. So I remember when my son went to uni years ago, when he went to uni, he already knew how to iron for himself, wash for himself, iron, look after his own clothes, cooking. So he went uni, and I remember him saying, oh, like in the first year, he had friends. He ended up having a lot of friends, and there was time he literally would get away with not buying as much food, or buying as much food, because literally he had friends. The boys would come to his room and they'll be like, you cooked this food on your own. So they will literally just be buying food and, talk to him nicely and ask him to prepare food for them. And then they'll do the dishes, they'll do everything. So literally all he was doing is cook. Not an everyday thing, but every now and then they would literally just come to him so that he cook. No one asked him to teach them to cook, and no one bothered to learn to cook. But for years and years, they did this thing where he's always been cooking for himself and all that. And those are the things that I say, teach children to cook for themselves. It doesn't have to be wonderful meals. Teach them to cook, teach them. They are going to be the husbands of tomorrow. So when you're raising your child, you're not raising someone's husband, but you are sort of, because these are the same people that when they're living with a wife or they're living with a husband or somebody, they can't even clean up after themselves. And if the other person, the other side is trained to do that, it means just that other side is going to be doing all the work. Whereas if you raise them in a way that they can do, they're self-sufficient, they can look after themselves in every way. They can cook, clean, and do all sorts of things for themselves at a young age. They grow up. By the time they have to live on themselves, it's not going to be an issue. They're literally just going to be ready for life. So let's teach them to be independent and be ready to do life. Play with them. Like I said, they are our friends. Play with them. I encourage families to play together. Have game nights. Have times where you can just have time, family time, play games, go out, go on rides and all that. I'm grateful because I was quite young when I had my son. And the advantage of that is I can really play with him. I have played with them. I play with them to a point where later when I'm with them, the inner child in me comes alive. I play with them to a point where they shouldn't be, there was time he had friends who were like, oh, your mom is cool and all that. And you think, okay, his friends think I'm a cool mom. I didn't even know, because I just thought I was playing with him. I can play with him. I can play with his friends, because they need to see the human being in me. I shouldn't be just this person who is just there to provide, there to look after them and all that. But I should be the person they can play with. They should see a human being in me. Don't criticize harshly. Sometimes I keep repeating, parenthood is a challenge. It's really challenging. It's very easy. Sometimes they make you angry. They have done something unexpected, something untoward, and you think, I didn't expect this from you. It's very easy to say words that will break them in a moment of anger. But it doesn't matter how angry they make us. This is where I've gone through something that has taught me to see what God is like. Not necessarily that I understand God, but I've had a child. When you love your child so much, but they've done something that you think, I really don't or didn't expect you to do this, or I don't expect you to do this. But you still have to love them beyond whatever mistake they have done, and you still love them, and you continue to love them, and literally just hope they will see the wrong in whatever they have done or whatever they're doing and everything. I got to learn that, oh my goodness, so this is what I'm doing to God. He still loves me. But how many wrong things do I do? I sin before God, but he still loves me beyond the sins. So this is where like I said, I'm getting to learn what it is like to be God. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I understand God or I am God, but I'm just saying it actually taught me that this is the same thing that my own children can do to me. I am doing way, way worse off to God, and he still loves me. Avoid arguments with your spouse in front of your children. This is almost like one of the things that I talked about when it comes to in the topic that I discussed last time about marriage as God intended. One of the worst things that we can do is have arguments in front of the children. If there are differences, let's wait and have moments to discuss. I have seen parents who literally be telling each other off in front of children, making each other feel useless, making each other feel like less important, making your other half feel stupid, like an idiot, and you do that in front of your children. Believe you me, at that moment, I always say, don't let anger control you. That is what I say. Anger is controlling you, because you're going to say, oh, when I'm angry, am I going to have to wait until the children are not there so we can discuss it and all that? It doesn't have to be like that. But there are a way of dealing with things when they're children. Do not let your children see you fighting. Do not let your children see you losing it. And because when all this is over, the thing about children, they learn more by what they see than what you tell them. So tomorrow you're going to tell them otherwise, but they have seen how you can be when you're angry. And these are some of the things that we regret. There are some things that happen in our lives or in our children's lives that we may think, I'm not responsible for this. But believe you me, you are. With the job that I do, I tend to see, I keep repeating, I tend to see parents at their most vulnerable moment. And most of the things that I always say to them, normally when they say, oh, I don't know how I'm going, I don't know if I'm doing this right, I don't know if I'm going to do it right, I don't know if I can do this parenting thing properly. And one of the most important things that I say to them is, you are the greatest teacher that your child will ever meet. Think deep about that. Because the world will teach your children lots of things, but it will not beat what you have taught them. So you are teaching them both verbally, physically, and in every way. Everything that you're doing around them. If you're going to sit and gossip, you won't be able to tell your child not to gossip. If you're going to sit there and if you're going to steal, if you're going to litter, swearing, you see people saying curse words and all that. And then when you hear your child, I hear parents. There was time I was telling my husband, I went shopping, and outside the shop, this mother must have been really stressed by, she was expecting money from somebody, I think I gathered from the shouting and everything. So she's standing with her husband and two children. One is standing and one is in the was inside the trolley. And the one who was inside the trolley must have been about 2-3 years. And then this child is, Mommy. Mommy was on the phone. So Mommy was talking to this person who is supposed to transfer money into the account. And the person could not, for whatever reason, I don't know. And then Mom was angry. Oh my goodness, the curse words that came out of her mouth to this child because she was angry. I looked and I cringed. And I'm saying this, like I said, about 2-3 years. And if you hear this 2-3-year-old saying these same curse words, are you really going to be surprised why the 2 or 3-year-old is saying curse words? They're saying these words? Surely not, because you've just taught them how to do it. What you're saying is when you're angry, say the curse words. So now that's normal. That is what you're making normality to them. And like I said, you are the greatest teacher of your child. So the things that you do, be intentional. The things that you do every day, you are teaching your child. Think of them. Are they things you'll be proud of to see in public tomorrow? Think about that. Listen to their point of view and include them in decision making. Recently, we made one big decision ourselves, myself and my husband, of moving, and it was a proper big move from one place to the other. And we knew before doing it, it's something that if it will affect us, but it will affect the children a lot more. And we had to involve them in every step of the way. Because when we were growing up, the parents would just tell you, and actually parents will be being secretive and all that. They'll be like, when we are moving, we're going somewhere else, you'll be just told maybe a week before, just because the parents don't want you to be telling people that you're moving, because they just don't want people to know. And you'll be just told, we're moving next week. And that's it. You don't have any saying in it. Not that we would have had any saying in it. I don't know. But I've discovered, involve them so they are part of everything that you do. They feel counted for. They feel important. They feel respected. They feel included. And if anything, they're not going to feel like, if there's going to be any side effects to whatever that decision is, if there's going to be the cons to it, you know, they're not going to put their fingers on you and just say, you did this to us, you did that to us, and all that. And if they're going to be any pros to it, you know, they're not going to be like, oh, it's because of mom, or it's because of dad, or it's because of, you are in it together. Even though the decision that we are making, even if we didn't have to tell them, it would not have changed anything. But even when it doesn't change anything, it's just making them feel included, feel counted in, because they are part of the family. They are making our family. For me and my husband, the children are what we live for. We have to make sure they're included in everything. Help them in making decisions. So children have got plenty of decisions to make, because we think we are the grown-ups ones. We are changing jobs, we are changing houses, homes, areas and things. We're doing these, we are starting big things in life and all that. We just think we are the ones who are making decisions. They have got decisions to make. They've got decisions to make, what career they want to do, what they want to become when they grow up, which subjects to pick for the career they want to do and all that. And as a parent, I should be there to promote that with their strength, recognizing their strength and helping them. It's very easy to think, oh, just because they're a child, they can just decide what they want to do. We make a mistake. We make mistakes in doing that. I remember my child, my first one, before he made a decision on what he wanted to study, he chose this career of which, when he said it, I thought, oh, maybe the African parent in me came alive. I was like, you tell me, go and look for people who have done this course and show me what job they're doing and what they're doing and everything. And he wasn't happy at that time. But anyway, after a little while, I don't know whether he went to do his research or anything, I don't know. He ended up changing the career and he did something different. And I had to support him because the change of career was literally the opposite direction. What he had chosen was some job that I was thinking, I don't know what he would be doing, working as now. But the career he chose right now, he literally is proud of himself. I'm proud. As parents, we are proud of him. He is proud of himself. But you can't say to him, you remember I helped you now. But I am glad he chose that one. And I'm glad as a parent, I didn't say to him, I don't want you to do this one. I want you to do this one. I didn't. I just said to him, the career you're choosing, just go and look for people who have trained and they're doing well in life by doing that job. And then we can go, then we can talk. And he came back with completely a switched mind, and he changed and he trained in something different that really makes him proud of himself. He is proud of himself because of that. Never make them feel like they cannot do anything. If there's a biggest cheerleader for your children, is you parents. You are the ones who can really be the biggest cheerleader in everything that they're doing. If anything, our children, you hear them say, I can be anything, or I can do this, I can do that. When we were growing up, you'd hear somebody saying, oh, you think you can do that and all that. It's very easy to undermine your own child because you think you're helping them to see reality. Nothing wrong with helping them see reality. However, encourage them. The sky is the limit. And if they feel they can be this thing, you are there to help them as their parent, to make sure you help them to become that thing. If there are ways that you can do to help them become that thing, as a parent, your role is to help and direct them towards that. Because if that's what they want to be, whatever they dream of, make sure you're fanning their burning desire of becoming something. You are there to make sure you're making the fire to that, and not discouraging them, but encouraging them. Demonstrate unconditional love. I know somebody will be like, how can somebody tell me to unconditionally love my children? I love them. I gave birth to them and all that. Yes, loving them unconditionally. If anything, every love that is on earth, this I've heard and I believe it, every love that is on earth is conditional. The husband and wife love is conditional because we tell each other we love each other unconditional. It is conditional because if that person is loving you, you love them back. If that person is going to treat you like crap and everything, it's going to be a challenge. And in the end, you won't love them as much as you're supposed to love them. Whereas your children, they could do all sorts of things. You still love them because they're your child. And it doesn't matter what they do. It's not because of what they do that makes you love them. You love them because they're your child. And because you love them because they're your child, you love them unconditionally. Make sure you're creating an environment where children are growing up with so much love around them that it encourages them. It makes them feel like they can just be anything in the world. You love them enough to encourage them to feel like they can do just about anything because they feel loved. They don't feel undermined, because unfortunately the world out there is waiting to destroy them. Be that environment that is building them up so that anything that is happening around them has got no power to destroy them. It has got no power to discourage them. It's got no power to mess their dreams and all that. You are there to support, encourage, love them, and do all sorts of things that a parent can do so that the world cannot destroy them. Just like the Bible in Ephesians 6 verse 4 says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger," which means we can easily, as parents, we can easily provoke our children to become this thing that even we will not like. We still love them, but we may not like because of the outcome that can come out of it. There are children out there that have become whatever they have become because of the way they were parented. Because if you are parenting your child in a way that they are ready for tomorrow, that they are the people that will be counted tomorrow, it is because you are raising them with love. I'm not saying just because you've loved and parented your children the right way, it means there is guaranteed they're going to become the presidents and everything, the CEOs of big companies and all that. It's a lot easier to think the way you raise your children is guaranteed that they're going to be a somebody. Sometimes it might not be that way. But you know, there's this saying that they say, raise your children so that you can spoil your grandchildren tomorrow. Because if you spoil your children, you will raise your grandchildren. Yep. So raise your children so that you will spoil your grandchildren. Because if you spoil your children, you will raise your grandchildren. Adapt and adjust with time. This means 1 minute you're a parent of a 1-year-old, no, you're a parent of this brand new baby, and then you're a parent of a 1-year-old, 2 years old, 3 years old. The same parent that when a 1-year-old, you know, when you're at the seaside or you're outside playing, they're playing with sand, they're playing with all this, you're doing it with them. The reason you're doing it with them is because you want them to understand they've got a friend in you. That should not change because they're now 13, 14, they're doing, what do they call it? The dance. What do they call it? Flossing. So they're dancing these funny dances, and this time you're letting them do it themselves. Join them and do the silly things. The same silly things you were doing. They were putting sand on themselves when they're a baby, and now they are 15-year-old and they're doing this thing and you don't want to join them. Again, like I said, play with them, join them, be by their side, be that friend who is available to play even the silly things that stimulate their brains, that encourages them. So by adapting and adjusting with time, it means you are going along with the changes that they go through. So as a parent, you've, like I said, you've played with them when they were little, you've played with them when they were teenager, you've jumped about and all that when they're graduation in uni, and then now they're getting married, and those are changes. Now they're bringing this man into your house, they're bringing this woman into their house as an extra member of the family, and your family is extending. Be ready and adjust to those changes, because they're going to be those changes, and still love them enough that this extra person they bring as their extension, they're going to feel as part of the family. They're going to feel loved, because they are just an extension of your family. For parents with little ones, monitor and minimize digital use. I am glad I raised my children before the phones were what they are today. The disadvantage of these things, it's an advantage we have got phones everywhere and everything. But then the disadvantage of technology, I am seeing people letting social media, letting YouTube, letting all these things raise their children. You're working hard and you're letting the phone keep your little one company. It helps, I've seen it, but I am so grateful to God that we didn't have that in my days when we were raising children, because we don't know the downfall of it. And the problem is, by the time we're going to be discovering that these children have spent too much time on phones and these gadgets, the iPads and the tablet and everything, we might look back and think, why did we let them? So let's minimize. So this is where, let's play with them. I know we have got busy lives, but let's have some TV time, some phone time, and some just playing time. Not 24/7 a child is on the phone. I don't think these things are good for their eyes. I personally don't think. I don't think these things are good for their ears. And sometimes we might not be able to monitor everything that they're seeing on these gadgets. And unfortunately, it will expose most of our children at a very young age to see things that we never saw in our days as children. The things that are not meant for a child that age to see. That's the problem. So we really need to keep an eye and minimize and monitor what our children are watching on social media, what they are getting involved with. And yeah, that takes me to even the grown-ups ones, the teenagers. There's cyberbullying. There's a lot of things that are happening in these social medias and all that. Let's monitor. Let's talk to our children. Let's encourage them to a point where they're not looking for validation from outside, because this is where they get destroyed, when they're not getting that validation. So let us be that parent that is available and is alert to the things that are happening. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can 101% cyberproof and make sure your children are not exposed to these things. But just be alert enough to pick up some of the things, because most of the times when things happen and then you look back and you think, what did I miss? What was I missing? So let's wake up to the things that are happening on social media, be it the young ones or the teenagers and all that. Let's just keep guard and watch what our children are being exposed to. Let us not live through our children. I'm sure, I do believe, every parent wants the best for their child. Every single parent, we want the best. But I would like to say, let us just want the best for them. Let us not correct our mistakes through them. I would have loved to be a doctor. I would have loved to be the president of this country. I would have loved to be this. And then therefore, because I failed to be that, I'll push my child to become that, so that it makes me feel like I'm halfway there. As much as we want the best for our children, this is where I say, recognize their strength, promote them, help them, give them guidance, direction give them the right direction towards whatever they want to be. But one of the most important things that children need, we want them to grow up into these people who are self-sufficient. They are a good person, they are a good husband, they're a good wife, they're a good, whether they're going to be a boss, this good work colleague, a nice person to be around, a good friend, a person that they can be counted on, a person that is just in the right way. Because if we chase their future so desperately to a point where we miss teaching them the right things, this is where you have people who are as rich as they become the big businessman and all that, but they're a person who they don't care about anybody. They are the worst husband. They make the worst wives because they've just been so focused in, I just want to be this person and that's all that is important. Unfortunately, that's important, but that's not the most important things. There are important things in life that we need to teach our children. Have time, take time to teach your children those things, rather than just be so focused in chasing them. Whilst they're young, you want them to be this person and all that. We have seen people committing suicide because the parents, they were not given the chance to be a child at a young age. They're just being taught, you just go for lessons for this, and all that. Nothing wrong with that. But if that's all that is important, you're chasing those things so much that you're missing out on enjoying the children. Because this is one of the things that I always say. Remember, these children we are given, they are visitors to our homes. You have them for, I remember somebody, they were saying we have them 960 something weeks in life. The rest after that, they go and start their own lives. We hope they do and go and stand on their own 2 feet and look after themselves and do life on their 2 feet, rather than just depending on you. So as good as that is, let's not make that the only important thing. And let's not forget to enjoy them whilst we have them in our homes. Let's enjoy our children. I always say, when you're given a chance, it's a privilege. When you have been given a privilege to be a parent, take it serious. Do it right. Don't do the things you failed in life through them. Don't let them become what you failed to do in life, because they're a different person. They're not you. You're not making a mini you. You're just helping this different person to become the best version of themselves. So that's all you're doing. But don't chase that so much. Don't be so focused on that so much that you miss out on enjoying them, and you miss out on giving them the right direction, as in help them to become the best version of themselves. Whereas you're just so focused in, I want to make this man to become like the prime minister of this country and all that. Yeah, if that's what their passion is, fine. But don't push them just because you want to prove a point that they can be that, because then you miss out on enjoying them. You miss out on the whole point of being a parent. And you can even miss out on a good relationship that you would have had with your child. How many children are out there and say, yeah, I did this certificate and I gave it to my parents. My son has got a friend that went to uni and did 3 years in uni and everything. I can't remember what he was supposed to train as, and he did, and he came back. When he finished, he graduated, he brought the certificate and gave it to the parents. I said, there you are. You wanted me to be a doctor or a nurse or something. There you are, because this is what you want. That's not what I wanted. Now I'm gonna go and do what I wanted. And then they went and did music, something like that. We don't want that, because already that's a tension between that relationship. That's not good. That's not a good relationship when a child is having to do something just to please you, because they know you are so focused on them becoming that, and you're missing out on what they really like in life. Make time for your children. I did talk about play with them and all that. Also make time that is just one-on-one. Like I said, I've got 3 children. They are 3 different human beings with very different characters and all that. As we all know, every person is different. But make one-on-one time with each child. Like I said, make time and get to know one child with their own time. So I'll give an example. I have like weekends where it's just me and my daughter. We go out shopping. So it's just the 2 of us and just spending time together. Then I'll have time later just sitting down, whether it's watching TV or just sitting down with my son, especially my older son. He likes one-on-one. He will later come in the bedroom. It will be just the 2 of us. Later just sit hours, just the 2 of us, just talking. And then the other one, my middle one, he's a quiet person, but still I have time where it's just me and him, where we can just joke and play and laugh and just get to know them, let them get to know you more and more, and just build that relationship. Because it's a lot easier to just have the relationship that is just a mom and her 3 children, or a dad and his 3 children. Whereas there has to be moments where it's just you and one of them at a time. It's really important. Teach them to know God for themselves. If you are not a Christian, if you don't believe in God, unfortunately, this point may be useless to you. But I believe I've got a relationship with God, and I am what I am today because of God. For that reason, I want the same for my children. So I believe teaching your children to have a relationship with God, to know God for themselves, not the God that mom prays to, but the God that they know and have a relationship with, that will come through for them when the world is coming chaotic and upside down. So make sure you teach your children to know God, have a relationship, and they'll be able to stand tomorrow. So we have come to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. And once again, like I said, I do not mean at any moment that I know how to do these things. I do not mean I do all the things that I've said in them in my video, that I follow everything. Some of the things I'm still learning. This parenting thing, like I keep saying, is something that we learn every day as we go by. We make sure we correct what we think are the wrong things. We have done them wrong. We continue to learn. We continue to try and do it right in the way that we know best. And I would ask, or I would advise everybody to do the same. What works for me may not work for you. We all know that. But that does not mean everything I've said may not work for you. There are some things that will work for you and may not work for me, but you might twist them and do them in a certain way and they'll work for you, which is good. So let's make sure that we continue to learn. If you are a parent, you do not stop learning. You do not stop researching on better ways to be a parent. I know love is the most important thing. Love them as much as you can, to a point where you suffocate any ideas from outside that would want to come and destroy your children. And in so doing, you continue to raise the best version of what you've been given to have for this short time, until they become their own person standing on their 2 feet. So please like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't. And for anybody who thinks I've said things that they didn't agree with, I would actually appreciate the comments. If you tell me things that I've forgotten to say, things that you would have preferred me to say. Take care and God bless, and see you in the next video.